is the Fresno Regional Foundation program staff, and welcome to our 2013 Youth Grants Information Session. Today we're going to go over some important information about our goals to fund and selection criteria, as well as how to use our OLGA system to apply. We'll also be sharing some other information that kind of gives you an update on some of the broader initiatives that the Foundation has been engaging in terms of grant making and how some of that is influencing parts of the youth grant cycle and others. This is kind of an overview of sort of the direction the Foundation is moving in grant making. So now we're going to introduce the staff on the call today. We have our Senior Program Officer, Sandra Flores, here, myself, Natalie Garcia, and so Sarah Sobral, our Foundation Support Specialist for Programs, is not with us today, but she is a crucial part of our team, and you'll probably be communicating a lot with her over the course of applying to grants to us. So first and foremost, we'd like to share two very important deadlines that we want you to put on your calendars if you intend to apply for youth. The organizational profile form, or what we refer to as an OPF, is going to be due March 15th at 5 p.m. And the application for youth is going to be due 2 weeks later, March 29th at 5 p.m. Please make a note of these dates on your calendars and make sure that you have them saved. So also just another note, your microphones currently are on mute, and we will be unmuting the microphones midway through after we go through the goals to fund and selection criteria overview. So you have an opportunity to ask some questions about the intent of the grants and what the committee and the board is looking to fund as well. And then we'll also have some time at the end of the presentation where we can answer questions also on the intent of the grants, but as well more logistical concerns with using our OLGA system and applying. Also, a recording of this webinar will be posted on our grant making page within a couple of days, as well as a copy of the handout that you received via email about 15 minutes before this presentation started. So for this year, the youth goal to fund is a little bit different than last year. The committee kind of looked at some of the past grants that were made, looked for trends in what the committee and the board were interested in funding, and also incorporating some of the new things that we've learned through our newest grant cycle called High Impact. We'll be sharing a little bit more information about that later and sort of like the philosophical direction that is kind of leading the Foundation in its grant making. But the goal to fund for this year for youth is to fund organizations serving children 4th through 12th grades, addressing the social, educational, and health challenges that impact youth in our region while working collaboratively with community partners to provide services. This year, we've narrowed the youth goal to fund a little bit to complement our high impact grant cycle, which is focusing on student success by the 3rd grade. So those grants are really focusing on children and their families that have children, or families that have children who are 0 to 8, early education, upstream investment, and how we prepare children to be successful in school. We saw an opportunity with our youth grant cycle to complement that and look to the 4th to 12th grades and addressing various issues impacting youth in the region. Another big emphasis that has been incorporated, also largely due to what we've learned through our new grant cycle High Impact, is collaboration. And we are looking for organizations who are looking to take their collaborative relationships and partnerships steps further, looking to integrate services and really how they all work together to complement each other to make the services that families and children are receiving to be a little bit more integrated and comprehensive, and to kind of just work together in a coherent manner. So some selection criteria that goes along with the goals to fund. And just to clarify, meeting these criteria will cause your application to receive a higher ranking. They are not necessary. The goal to fund must be met. That's the critical threshold to be eligible for a grant or be competitive for a grant, is meeting the goal to fund and aligning with the goal to fund. But the selection criteria will give you, these are kind of like bonus points. If you align with these, we will note that, and it will help your application receive a higher ranking. So some of our selection criteria are data supporting project impact. Are you collecting data? Are you aware of what's working and what's not within your programs? How are you tracking that and showing that you're making movement? Also, programs that are customized to target populations. We know we have people in our community who have that are diverse and distinct. And so when you're kind of looking at how are we designing programs, is it meeting the needs of our community? Are they effective? So that sort of examination of how you target for effectiveness is going to help you receive a higher ranking. Proven expertise in the field, in the proposed field of work. How long you've been doing this work, your staff and their experience and their training. Strong organizational capacity. Do you have the management staff and the training to support your staff in being successful in doing these? Do you have strong leadership? Is your board engaged? Strong rationale for proposed program and or approach. We like to see this come through that, there was a thought process in developing this program or continuing this program and how it's evolved to meet the needs of the population that you're working with. And like we said before, the integration with other programs, organizations, and or systems. Who are you working with? Who are the other parties that are involved? And are you talking to each other? How you can holistically meet the needs of the youth and families that you're working with. Some additional selection criteria, that is kind of some other things that have risen to the top in the past for youth grants, are programs that increase educational opportunities for youth in rural and in unincorporated communities. We've noticed when we've worked with various grantees in rural communities just how much there is a lack of services and a lack of access in a lot of places. Some rural high schools don't offer very many or any of the college advanced courses that a lot of youth need to be college ready. So we are considering that in selection criteria. Programs that promote youth civic engagement and service learning. These are some things that kind of provide another avenue for youth to get involved when maybe the traditional school activities aren't necessarily as engaging. Educational programs that focus on math and science. And educational programs that increase student success for college or career readiness. We also learned some things during High Impact when we were collecting data, and valley-wide, about 2/3 of the students that are graduating from high school were graduating without being ready to attend a UC or CSU school. When we looked at these numbers, it's no wonder that we don't have a workforce and we don't have the professionals that we need here to fulfill a lot of the jobs that require a bachelor's degree or at least post-college training. So we want to, a selection criteria is to focus on college or career readiness. And then also another selection criteria is programs that trigger matching dollars or additional resources in the region. You definitely want to note this in your application if that is the case. So we've talked about this a little bit and touched on it a little bit, but we also want to share a little bit more information about what we mean by this collaboration and integration. Collective impact is a big part of our new grant cycle, High Impact, and it's looking at furthering those relationships and really formalizing them to deepen them and improve the services that families and children are receiving. So we're going to go show a short video now from FSG, which is Foundation Strategies Group. They've been doing a little bit of work with different organizations and collaborations that have been looking at collective impact, particularly the Greater Cincinnati Foundation and their STRIVE initiative.
Collective impact. Diverse organizations coming together to solve a complex social problem. Traditionally, nonprofits have operated in isolation from one another, pursuing their goals independently. But complex, large-scale problems require a coordinated, structured, and collaborative approach. Collective impact means creating alignment. Commitment, policy, funding, trust, and coordinating across sectors, public, nonprofit, business, governments, foundations. Collective impact efforts typically have 5 conditions. Common agenda. This means all parties agree to shared goals and how to get there. Shared measurement, keeping track of the same things. Mutually reinforcing activities, each actor doing their own part, using their unique skills. continuous communication, regularly sharing results with each other, backbone organization, a support team that helps mobilize, coordinate, and facilitate to keep the goal in sight and the progress rolling. Channeling our collective strength, we can solve the world's toughest problems. Collective impact. Diverse organizations coming together to solve a complex social problem.
Okay, so that was a little bit on collective impact. And in just a second, we're going to return to the PowerPoint. We'll go back in just a second. So collective impact, it was just to show you a little bit more about the high impact grant cycle. It's our newest grant cycle, and we publicized guidelines. Some of you might have been aware last quarter of 2012, and we made 5 grants in the first quarter of 2013. And the 2 focuses of that was supporting student success and helping children become literate by the 3rd grade. We learned a lot about how important it is for children to know how to read on time. We combed through a lot of research on how important 3rd grade is. We learned a lot through our participation in the grade level reading campaign, and so we were really decided that that was the what of the high impact grant cycle. The how was the collective impact, which was equally as important. We know that there's not enough funding for us to fund programs, even if they're effective programs, in perpetuity. So we wanted to encourage organizations to find different ways to work together. How can we help support organizations sharing data with each other so that they know who's receiving services, which children are receiving services from which organizations, and how they're progressing. So it's kind of this whole, how do we unravel the combination of services that are going to be effective for different families and help them achieve self-sufficiency and success. So now we are going to share a little bit more about the grant amounts and durations. So for this grant cycle, we have $206,000 total available. Of that 206, we have 105 that's been earmarked specifically for Dinuba, Cutler, Rosie, Orange Cove, Reedley for youth and education. This pot of 105 is possible from a donor who left a bequest gift to the foundation. Her name is Dorothy Mitsuoka, and she really had a passion for seeing the children in her community become ready for college and attend college, because she always had a dream to become a teacher, and she was never able to attend college on her in her life. So when she left this endowment to the foundation, she really wanted the children in her community to be college ready. So we'll get a little bit more information on that later. About the focus of those grants, and but that was the intent of the donor who left the gift. And we also have $10,000 that's earmarked specifically for charter school petition development. This is a we don't have to give this every year, but if we do have a compelling application for charter school petition development, we will give we might give a grant for $10,000. So the grant range is $5,000 to $25,000. So in order to receive a grant from the foundation, some of our eligibility criteria is that you must have 501c3 status. You can be a government agency, such as a city or a county. You can be a community group with a fiscal agent. And you can be, if you don't have if the community group does not have its 501c3 status, it can partner with another organization that does have its 501c3 status to serve as a fiscal agent. If you do wish to pursue this option, please, we encourage you to get in touch with the program staff so we can explain a little bit the documentation that we would need and how this process would work. If you have any questions about it, you can be a public agency like a library, or you can be an educational institution such as a high school or university. Also, to be eligible for a grant from the Regional Foundation, you need to be providing services within one of the 6 counties of our footprint. That footprint includes Merced, Mariposa, Madera, Fresno, Kings, and Tulare counties. Some other things that we will look at when we are considering a grant application is your organizational health that we measure by your most current 990. For this grant cycle, we will require the 2011 990. Your most recent board-reviewed internal financial statements, which should include your balance sheet and your income statement. So the 4 crucial things that we look for on this is your assets, liabilities, revenues, and expenditures. We also look at your external audit, only for organizations who have gross receipts of more than $500,000. If you do not have a gross receipts of $500,000, we do not require this audit. We look at the operational budget for your organization, and we also require that you have a minimum of 5 board members, and we are considering whether or not they have diverse experiences and or backgrounds. But the minimum of 5 is the threshold to receive a grant from us. So some things that we will not fund or give grants for. We will not fund previously incurred expenses. We will not fund fundraising by one organization on behalf of the other. We will not fund endowments. We will not fund institutions limiting their services to a single religious sect or denomination, and we are not able to give grants to individuals. So one thing that's really important before considering applying to a grant from us is to review the reporting requirements. We expect that all applicants and grantees will be able to comply with what we are collecting, the information that we're collecting and looking to gather. The most important part of this, or the part that most organizations in the past have not always been prepared for, is demographic information. We do want to collect information on the age, ethnicity, and gender of the people that you're serving through the grant. We also ask that you share any media coverage resulting from the grant award, and we'll show you where you can do this in the final report. And if you do not submit a final report, this may disqualify you from applying for funds from the foundation. So right now, before we go into Olga, I'm going to pause and see if we're going to unmute you and see if there's any questions about the goals to fund and selection criteria.
This is Sandra. Well, if anybody has any questions, raise your hand. I see Lourdes. I'm going to, there you are, Lourdes. You are unmuted. Lourdes, I have you unmuted so you can talk. You'll have to press your button, your icon, so you can speak on your phone. Okay, I'm going to unmute Oscar now.
Oscar, are you there?
Oscar? I see a hand up, and I have you unmuted. You will have to unmute your phone. So if you're on mute, you will have to unmute your button. And I do have Lourdes unmuted also, so you will have to unmute your phone.
Hello?
Hello.
Do you hear me now?
Yes,
Yes.
we hear you.
Okay. My question is, my nonprofit applied last year for the youth program, and we have a, application in the system. So do I make a new application, or do I simply go in and update our current application?
You will be making a new application for this year. We only allow one organizational profile form per organization, but the applications, you will start a new one for this year.
So we will have to make a new application for 2013.
Right, right. You'll need to make a new application, but you only need to update your organizational profile form.
Okay. Thank you.
Uh-huh. Okay, do we have any more questions? Next we have Melissa. Melissa, are you there? We'll just give it 1 second. Melissa, are you there?
No questions.
Hi.
Hi, we don't have any questions. Thank you.
Oh, you don't? Okay.
No.
Okay, so if we don't have any more questions right now, and also you can feel free to raise your hand while we're going through the Olga section of the presentation, and we can answer your questions then, or we will allow some time at the end as well for additional questions. Okay, so we're going to go into our Olga system and show you how to apply. Let's see. Okay, so this is Fresno Regional Foundation's homepage, what you're looking at right now. If you see across the top, the crucial places that you're going to be looking to and that grantees spend, or applicants spend a lot of time in, is either the grant making tab here, which will go into our different grant cycles and the goals to fund. So right now we're going to youth, and this is where you'll find more information on what we've gone over. And important dates to the right column, you'll see we have also an in-person grants information meeting coming up next Thursday, and we have our OPF deadline date on there. We have our grant application deadline date, and we have our final report due date for grantees from 2013. So if we go back up to the top, we're going to go into Olga, and you get there by clicking in the very top right corner called My Olga Login. As we go through this, we're going to show you how to access the system if this is your first time, and we're also going to show you how to access if you're a returning user. So the first time that we go, this is your first time in Olga, you're going to go, you're going to click on that link. You're going to go request an account in Olga, and you'll be brought to this page. And one important thing to remember on this page is all very basic information, including username and password, and also some contact information from your organization. But one important thing that we would like you to remember is that you might already have an account with us. Several organizations, if you have turnover, the contact that's been applying to the grants has changed. And you might not have the current username and login information. The way you can test this is by going into check existing tax identification number. When you're in here, you can type in an organization name or the tax ID number for your organization and search. If you hit the search button and something pops up, it means that you already have an account in our system, and we would like you to get in touch with us. And you can do that by this link saying that says Email Program Officers in the top right corner. If you click on that, you'll send an email directly to us and say, hey, I went into the system. I see I have an account with you, and we will help you go through that and reset the username and password once we confirm that you're with the organization, and then you can get started. So that's how you submit for a new account if you're new to the foundation. If you already have an account with us, then you come in here and you use your username and password to sign in. Sandra, let's sign in as me. So we sign in, and you're greeted here by the program staff. And the first place that you're going to go is to start an OPF or grant application. Along the purple bar is My OPF/Grant Applications. One thing you're also going to notice at the very top is that there is a timer in yellow. We added this last year just to give you an idea of how much time you have left. This page doesn't require you need to refresh your page every 20 minutes to ensure that you don't lose your work. And we'll show you exactly where to do that as well. So the first step in applying to a grant for us is the organizational profile form. You'll see in my profile that I already have one for the Fresno Regional Foundation. One important thing to note is that we do need you to update your OPF every calendar year. So even if you filled this out maybe in the third quarter or the fourth quarter of last year, we do need you to submit a new one in January. So we update every calendar year. At the end of 2012, we went through all the OPFs. We removed all the attachments from last year as a reminder to submit new ones. And so we do need this updated every calendar year. So in order to, there's a couple different buttons on the OPF. As you saw, there is a view and an edit. And these kind of have two different functions, and we're going to show you what they are. So the first one we're going to go to is edit. And when you're in edit mode, this is, of course, where you make your edits to your OPF. We want to know at the very top if this is a new OPF or if you're just updating the annual OPF. You're going to put which year that your annual update is for. So if we're going to be doing it for 2013 this year. The box program officer notes, this is where we will be writing. You will not be allowed to make notes in there, but we will be writing notes on any documentation that we need from you that we didn't receive initially, or any other thing, any other important communication regarding your organizational profile form you will find there from us. So if we scroll down, just basic information, your organization's name, mission, contact. And once we get down here, fiscal responsibility. This is only for organizations who are a community group with a fiscal agent need to fill out this section. So one important category in here that we often get that's a little incomplete, if we can scroll back to the demographics, is board and staff demographics. This is something that we do require organizations to complete. We use this as part of our annual grantee analysis. We go through all the organizations who have applied to us, all the organizations who have received grant from us, and we look at the diversity of the organizations that we are working with. It is something that we like to keep in mind in best serving the community. We have a couple questions here that there's further explanation for that you will see. And financial information. This is basic financial information for your organization. And also there's, if you hover over the buttons, the gray little buttons next to the headings, it'll provide you some tips on what we're looking for there. So if you aren't sure what we mean by liabilities, we'll have the associated number with the 990 available to help guide you through which numbers that we're looking for. So if you scroll down a little bit more, this portion of the OPF is where we collect financial and basic information about your organization. So some of the things that are required are the most recent 990 and also audited financial statements if you have gross receipts of $500,000 or more. And we also have hover buttons there to show you exactly what we're looking for. And if you're if you aren't sure exactly what we're looking for internal financial statements or audited financial statements, we have examples as well that you can open. So let's open the link to the internal financial statements. And this is, here we are. So this is a sample of what we're looking for. And the formats for this we know vary by organization, and we don't want you to have to reformat all your financials just to meet exactly what you see on this template. The most important things to be looking for here are assets liabilities, revenues, and expenditures. Those are the 4 main categories that we would like to see. We also would like these to be recent. So for right now, we're processing OPFs for the Arts and Culture Grant Cycle, and the most recent financial statements that will, the oldest financial statements that we'll accept are from September 2012 or more recent. So for Youth Grant Cycle, we're going to be looking for December 2012 or more recent for your financials there. Okay, and tax exempt letter, we require that, the one you get from the IRS to show that you don't have to pay taxes and you're a 501c3. A W-9 if you're a school, government, or public agency, because we know you might not have the IRS letter. Your current board and staff roster. One thing we come and get in this is just the board roster. We also ask for the staff roster. And if your organization has a strategic plan, it's helpful for us to have that as well, but this is optional. If we go down a little bit further, there's a couple slots for other. Sometimes, things come up and we additional documentation is required, and that's a slot that we can reserve for other things. And the board chair, and the next 2 slots are board chair recommendation letter and non-board recommendation letter. It's important to note that these are only for new 501c3s that do not have an IRS tax return yet, that have not filed a 990 yet. So these do not apply to all organizations, just newly formed ones that don't have a 990 yet. And then at the very bottom down here, we have submission status. So return for editing means that you're still working on the document and it's not ready for us to review. And if you submit to FRF, that means you're sending it over to us. You want us to review it for completion, and so you can get the green light to apply. And then you click the blue button to save your work, and to know that you successfully saved, you'll see that confirmation page that just popped up. And it'll tell you a little bit about the 2 options if you selected save and return or submit, and what that means. And you'll also see at the very top that your timer refreshed. So you went back to 20 minutes. So then this is kind of how you make sure that your work is safe. So also once you one big difference between edit and view mode is when you're in edit mode and you say you're attaching documents and then you save your work, if you go back into edit mode, you will not be able to see your documents attached there. They are only viewable in view mode. So if you go into edit, if you save a bunch of documents and you're on time and you didn't miss the timer, and you go back into edit mode and you know sometimes people get a little worried because they don't see them, just go look into view mode. So if you go into view mode, you'll see all the work that you completed. And we'll scroll down. Everything that you entered. And there you can see there's where the attachment is. So and then also one issue that we do come across is organizations will attach a document, but it won't be in either a format that's acceptable or there'll be a symbol in the file name. This is a very common problem. Someone will say save board and staff roster, and they'll use that symbol for the ampersand, and we won't be able to open it. So to ensure that we will be able to see the documents that you saved, just go into view mode and click on it, and if it opens for you, it's going to open for us. Okay, so that's view mode for the OPF, and now we're going to go into the grant application. So if you're going to start a new application for youth, you're going to click on which we need a new one. We don't we have the old one saved in the system, but for every new grant cycle, we require a new application. Again, basic information at the top. And one important area is funding area category. So this is going to be what grant cycle that you're applying for. This categorizes things in our back end of our system. And you have to select this to save, so it won't let you save without selecting the funding category. And then we have grant project name. You also have to enter something in this field to be able to save. It's not a big deal if you don't. When you hit the save button, it's just going to tell you need to go back and add a grant project name, and that's no big deal. So grant project description, we ask that you keep this at 50 words or less. If you go over, we might just cut it on our own, and that's what our committee will see. So you want to be the one in control over what the description says, so please keep that at 50 words or less. Grant amount requested, please check the grant range for the youth grant cycle. The range is $5,000 to $25,000, except for the charter school petition, which is fixed at 10. And we'll go down. Basic information, the narrative boxes. There's a 1,000-character limit to these boxes, and one thing that we recommend you doing is working in a Word document on your own computer so you don't have that anxiety about being timed out and working in the system and being on the clock. So if you're on a Word document, you can work at your own pace, and when you're ready, you can cut and paste over. Please use the word counter in the Word document and count spaces, because our system does count spaces as characters. So these are the basic questions that we ask. Goal alignment, what are your outcomes, what indicators are you going to measure? And now we're here down at the bottom of the application. So for the application, we have the form and the narrative boxes that you fill out. And we have also, if you're applying for $10,000 or more, we have an additional narrative attachment that has a couple additional questions that we'd like you to ask. For the youth, if you see the notes, the text in red, for all of our grant cycles for arts and culture, youth, human services, teen pregnancy prevention, and environment, we have one template for that, and then high impact has its own separate template. So since we're in youth, we're going to go into the youth template. And these are the additional questions that we will be asking. What changes are you trying to produce? What sort of impact are you looking to have in the community? What are the specific and kind of measurable and time-measured activities, so kind of a timeline of the grant? And sustainability plan. We're always interested in hearing how, since we are a competitive cycle, we receive a lot of grants, applications every year for our cycles. We can't offer any guarantee that what we fund you for this year, we will be able to fund you for next year. So we're interested in hearing about the sustainability of your organization and also of this program. Is this core to what you do, or is this going to be something that's solely funded by the foundation? And if we don't fund it again next year, the program might go away. These are some of the things that we think about, and we would like you to address in the sustainability plan question. So that's the additional narrative template. We do ask you to use that template only. And the next one we're going to go into, and that's optional, that's only if you're applying for $10,000 or more. And the next template we're going into is the budget template. And the budget is required for all grant applications. And we have two tabs to this budget template. The first one is only for all applicants. And it's a very basic template. We have expense categories. We have a couple examples in there: staff salary, program materials, transportation. But this is entirely up to you to put what you need to have funded. We don't have any rules about overhead or limits on indirect. This is all for you to let us know what you need for your program. The amount requested column is for what you're requesting from us. Other funding sources, if you have matching dollars or you're going to be blending funding from another funder for this program, we ask that you identify what that is. And then total project budget. So say you're requesting $15,000 from us, which is going to go in the yellow bar at the bottom. And then other funding sources, say you're matching from another funder for another $15,000. The total project budget total should then be $30,000. To show us the total cost of the program. We like to know, kind of what our portion is that you're asking for funding for, and also if this is being supplemented by someone else. And so that's a basic template. And the second tab of this is financial history. This is for us to see financial trends of your organization over the last few years. And we have the basic categories we're looking for is total expenses, program services expenses, management and general expenses, and fundraising expenses. We have also put the associated lines for your 990s that have been filed, so you can refer to those to look for what number that we are asking for. We apologize, this template is from last year. We need to update it, but the numbers that we will be looking for that will need to be populated for the financial history will be 2010 to 2013. For 2013 numbers, we know we just started this year. We're looking just for an estimation of what you feel your budget's going to be this year. So just kind of that feeling is, okay, what do we have to work with for this year? If we know maybe a certain pot of funding is going to be sunsetting or discontinuing, that you just put that and reflect that in your 2013 numbers. So we will, we understand that these will be projections and estimations. Also at the bottom, there's a box there that Sandra just clicked on that allows for an explanation of any fluctuations in your financial history of 30% or more from year to year. So if we see a big drop-off, maybe your organization went from a budget of $3 million to 2.5, or I'm sorry, that's not a 30% fluctuation. We'll say $3 million to $2 million. You know, in order to explain what happened from that year to year, you know, if a program was discontinued or government funding went away, things like that. It answers some questions and provides some explanation for our committee to understand what happened during that year. We had a lot of big drop-offs around 2008, 2009 with the economic crisis because a lot of basically private donors weren't giving at the same levels that they had before. So, you know, it's just, you know, that's something that's outside of an organization's control, and we just like to see what happened from year to year. So after we do that, and just also remember that the financial history is only required for organizations who are applying for 10,000 or more. The first tab of the budget is required for all applicants. And at the bottom here, we have submission status, just like on the OPF. So return for editing means that you're still working on it and you're not ready for us to look at it. Submit it to FRF means that we will begin processing it for completion. And when you're done with that, hit the blue button. Oh, we need to enter a grant project name. And scroll back down and we'll save. And there's a confirmation page, and you also should be getting an email notification as well. And we'll talk a little bit about the layers that are in place to ensure that you know that your work has been saved. So that is the application. And now we're going to go really briefly into the final report. And we really encourage you to look at this as well, more in depth before you apply. So the final report was created, was the first thing that was created. The foundation was thinking about what it is they wanted to learn from grants, started with the final report, and then went backwards into the application. So we have grant impact, number of individuals served and services provided, and then the demographic information is the area where we've seen some organizations not being prepared to collect, so we like to be very upfront about what we're looking for. And what we're looking for is genders, age, and ethnicity served. And you know, there's various ways to collect this information. All organizations have been able to find a way to do it. If you have any concerns over you know, sensitivity issues with your clients that you're being served, please let us know, and we're more than happy to work with you on how best to collect this information and some other ways that organizations have been able to do it in maybe a less traditional way. So again, we have the narrative boxes with the questions, and these align with the application. So there's not going to be anything here that's they're going to align completely with outcomes and activities from the application. And then at the end here, we have some spots for attachments. We have a budget attachment. So your final budget, your actual expenses from the grant, and then we have 3 additional slots for stories. We had mentioned that we ask you to share any media coverage that you receive from the grant, or any other stories of impact that you would like to share. Just, you know, the amazing things that happened over the course of the grant that you were just like, I really want to communicate with the foundation about what this grant meant to the community and what and who we were serving. Anything that can demonstrate that, you're more than welcome to include as additional attachments that we will view, and also we will summarize and have and make available for the committee to review as well. Okay, so that is the final report. And now we are going to go back to the presentation for some final tips and wrap up. Before we do questions. So the submission of the OPF and application, there are 3 things in place to make sure that you know that your work has been successfully saved. There's the web page confirmation that will pop up as soon as you save your work that we saw. there's an email that will be sent to you that will have that will actually have all of your information that you just submitted saved in a form in the email. So you'll be getting that email as well. And then you'll have a final email approval sent by the program staff. This is going to only come after you submit to us, and it's and after a deadline. So you might be working on things, and you'll be getting your web confirmation in your email sent that knows that when you're working on it, that it's being saved. Once you submit to us, then near a deadline, then we're going to go in and we're going to do we're going to go through and pull all of the applications that were submitted or the OPFs that were submitted to us into an Excel list. We're going to look at it, and we're going to start processing them. Once we're done, once we started processing them and say, you know, we might need additional documentation for an OPF, or there's something on the application that we need that wasn't included, we will be sending you an email after the deadline saying we need this additional information from you. We'll give you a new deadline. It's usually going to be a half a day or a day because we're after our original deadline, and we just like to get the information submitted as soon as possible. But once we are done and your application and your OPF is complete and approved, you will be receiving an email explicitly stating that your application and OPF has been accepted, and that if it's an OPF, that you're okay to apply, and if it's an application, it will say that it's been accepted, and it's going to go through the process of committee and program review. So if one of these things is missing, it means that your item has not been successfully submitted. And remember, the third item is going to be after you submit to us. The first two things are just things that you'll see to know that your work is being submitted, that you're not going to lose it in the system. The third will come after there's actually a person, you know, on our end that's gone through it and said that we've accepted this, and you're clear to move on to the next step. And at any time, if you're uncertain whether or not that's happened, please feel free to call us or email us, and we can look. So some final reminders for Olga is we really ask that you use Firefox or Google Chrome. This is going to make your life much easier. These are the two browsers that are most compatible with our system. Please check and make sure that the request amount is within the grant range. Again, youth is $5,000 to $25,000. Please check to ensure that there's no symbols in the file names of your attachments. This will kind of put a roadblock in for us to getting any further in processing if we are not able to view the attachments that you've submitted. And remember that you can do this by going into view mode. Also be mindful of status. Return for editing means that you're still working on it. Submit to us means that you're ready for us to look at it. And the two important things in working on the application at OPF is the edit and view mode. Edit's where you work. View is where you'll see everything that's been submitted and where you'll be able to see your attachments and to see if your narrative boxes have been cut off. Okay, so that's the end of the Olga portion, and this is the time, if you have any additional questions about the goals to fund, the selection criteria, or how to apply, to please do that. We're going to, if you raise your hand, then we will unmute you, and then also please, you need to unmute yourself on your end. Okay, it looks like we have a question from Daniela. And is Daniela unmuted?
Hi.
Hi, Daniela.
Yes, I am. Thank you. Hi, how are you?
Good.
I was, sorry, I was responding. I was actually typing a response. Somebody had emailed or texted me saying to email Sandra directly about my question. I'm actually interested in the charter school grant. I'm in the application phase, and so my question was related to that, and so I don't know if I should still ask the question or not, because I'll tell you the question. I was just saying that I haven't applied for a 501c yet, and I understand you said to partner with another organization, but what to do in that situation?
Yes, so Daniela, this is Sandra Flores.
Okay.
I just text messaged you in case you didn't want to get on, but here's what you do. You go through the community group with a fiscal agent. You will need to get a fiscal agent to manage the grant.
Okay.
And so as you apply, you will select community group with a fiscal agent since you're not a 501c3. and you would need the documentation from that fiscal.
Okay.
Okay, so have you filled out the organization profile form?
No, not as of yet.
Okay, so that was due, or that will be due on March 15th. So
Okay.
you will, need to start talking to potential fiscal agents. And
Okay.
if you've been working with Jeff Sands, he may be able to help you and direct you with who could be a fiscal agent for you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any more hands raised?
No, I don't see any more hands raised. Oh, wait, that's Daniela's. I just got hers. I don't see any more hands raised. Oh, wait, I got Daniela again. We already did that one.
And just so I know this is, if you're still thinking through kind of what you're considering applying for, we really encourage you, and please feel free to contact us offline at any time, and we'd be more than happy to hear what you're interested in applying for and letting you know if we think that will be competitive or not. We are not green light, red light, so we would never say no, don't apply, or yes, definitely apply, you're going to get funding. What we can do is provide a little bit more insight and clarity on the intent of the goal to fund and the selection criteria. If you want to run that by us, please feel free to give us a call or email us anytime, and we'd be more than happy to do that, because I know that sometimes it's easier to do that on offline.
I have unmuted Melissa Lanes.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
Hi, are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm so sorry. I have questions from before, and I had accidentally disconnected myself in trying to unmute. I have two questions. One is clarification for the duration of this grant cycle. That would be 1 year if funding was awarded, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And then my second question is for the youth grant cycle, to be considered for that, would that disqualify consideration for the high impact?
No, it does not.
Okay.
We had changed the goals to fund so they complemented each other, but organizations, if your organization is serving children 0 to high school age, seniors in high school, you are eligible to apply for, organizations are eligible to apply for multiple grant cycles. You cannot, one organization cannot have 2 applications in the same grant cycle, but you can apply, for instance, in youth and high impact.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So I have unmuted Lourdes. She has her hand up. Lourdes, I have you unmuted. You just need to make sure you have unmuted your phone. And I know you said you were here. You just need to make sure that you have the audio piece. You dialed the code for the audio access. So I have another hand raised from Flora Johnson. I'm going to unmute Flora. Are you there, Flora? And remember, you have to unmute your phones. And if you can't get through, if you don't have audio capabilities, email us your questions. I have Lourdes unmuted and Flora. Let's see, any more hands raised here? Flora, you are unmuted, and Lourdes. So if you are having trouble, just email us your questions and we will get to you. But other than that, I don't see any other.
So here's our contact information, and we apologize if you're having any trouble getting through, but please feel free to send us any questions that you may have at program@fresnoregfoundation.org, or feel free to give us a call, and if you want to talk over anything you have in mind, or if you have any questions about submitting the application or the intent of the grants, we really encourage you to call us, and we'd be more than happy to talk to you about that. I think, Sandra?
Yes, we do have a question typed in that says, what if I haven't applied for a 501c3 yet? And I think that was Daniela's. And again, that's where you would look for a fiscal agent to manage the grant. So that information is on the website on how to do that. And I have another question that says, for the yearly budget information, are you looking for calendar year info or fiscal year? Okay, so your budget info is based on your fiscal year, whatever. It could be a calendar year or it could be a fiscal year. So we have no requirements. We will take the information based on your fiscal or calendar year. So the only requirement we have about a calendar year is that the organization profile form has to be updated every calendar year. Budget information is based on your fiscal cycle. So that is that question. Let's see here. And I don't believe we have any more questions.
So thank you all for joining us today, and please feel free. We really encourage you to get in touch with us anytime if you have any questions and kind of brainstorming your application and what you're looking to apply for, or if you want more clarity on what we mean by integration and collaboration. We'd be more than happy to have these conversations with you. And then we'd also be more than happy to help you with anything, any questions on applying through Olga. We really encourage you to start early and just to ensure that you get everything in and you don't have the panic at the deadline. And we'd be more than happy to help you through that process. When we get into the last couple of days before deadline, the chances of getting us on the phone is a little bit more difficult because we are dealing with a lot of calls about Olga. So to get the best time and attention, if you can get in touch with us before those last few days, it's going to make everything a lot easier. So we thank you for joining us for this past hour, and please feel free to get in touch anytime if there's anything we can help you with through this process. Thank you, and have a good day.